one else who loves me like you used to. Sometimes we're not ourselves. There's no one I can turn to. And I know all the feelings that we shared are in the past. And I know your relationships are never meant.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I see you, I see you. Good morning, and welcome. Thank you all for joining us on today. I'm so grateful for your presence here. I am looking forward to this conversation. How many of you were with us last week when we kicked off this series called Why Should We Elect You? If you were here and you enjoyed that and you learned something from it, go ahead and post something in the comments. Go ahead and like and share because you do not want to miss this upcoming conversation. That being said, of course, every single week on Unfiltered, we come here so that you can be blessed and stay woke. Our Be Blessed segment simply is us giving back to you in the form of cold, hard cash every single week. We are honored to be able to serve in that particular manner, and today is going to be no different. As a matter of fact, we always pick a number 1 through 100, and I am going to tell our special guest today to go ahead and text me the number. Good morning, Avril. Good morning, Joyce. Good morning, Jackie, Gifty, Tish, Diane. I see you. I see you. Good morning, Trina and Melissa. I see everyone pouring in. Go ahead and continue to like and share. Let me know that you are here and where you're joining us from. So, guys, today is what? August. Oh, I got her number. That's different. Okay, so you guys, I'm just saying. So let us know where you're joining from. Guys, we're going to go ahead and get into it because we have some stuff to cover today. So we talked last week about, Cleveland, Ohio is in the house. Welcome, welcome. We talked last week, Matson, Illinois. Welcome, Melissa from Illinois. Oh, you're way out there in Illinois. Of course, you know I'm from Chicago originally. So last week, I think we started the conversation talking about the fact that we are the gatekeepers. We are the gatekeepers. We're the ones who get to decide who goes and walks through the doors and sits in those seats, whether it's a local election, a state election, or a federal or national election. We're the ones who make the decisions, but sometimes we're not coming to the table to ask the right questions. We're not coming to the table. Welcome, Joyce from North Little Rock, Arkansas. We're not asking the right questions. So I'm glad you guys are here because you get to post the questions, because what happens in XYZ city affects the city down the street. Some of the ideas that we get from, for example, last week we learned that there was a county in South Georgia doing something that could impact what's happening up here in the Atlanta area. So pay attention. Think about these questions as you go forward in your own local elections and the importance of that local election. Without any further ado, guys, as you continue to like and share and invite people to take a look and to listen and to learn and to engage the process, please help me welcome actually our guest for today. She is no stranger to Unfiltered. She's actually been on for 2 different segments. One was called Women Worth Watching, WWW, and she also joined us for vaccination discrimination, which was a lively discussion. And I expect today to be nothing short of spectacular. Please welcome to the broadcast none other than LeWanna Heard-Tucker. She is a
Hi guys.
Hey.
Good morning, family. So good to see everybody. Good morning.
Good morning. It's interesting now that it's actually time for you to talk. Of course, your internet would act up when it hasn't been acting up all morning, but it's okay. We're going to work through that too. So, listen, LeWanna Heard-Tucker. I gotta say this and say something so I know that your internet has caught back up with us.
Okay. Hopefully, you can hear me now.
I can hear you. It's just you're not. For some reason, you're not moving. Like before, it was like we can't hear you. Are you on Chrome by chance?
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, check that out for me because I want to make sure that we can see your facial expressions live and in real time when I say what I'm about to say. So we're going to make sure that she's able to do that. Meanwhile, you guys continue to like and share. LeWanna, good morning, Christina Caldwell. Thank you for hopping on to Unfiltered this morning. How is everyone doing out there? Lee, are you back? You look like you're getting a little bit better over there.
I think I'm still on this. I don't. I think I'm on Chrome. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm trying to.
Yeah.
You want me on Chrome?
Okay, so she's moving in real time. Okay, then it's my end. So let's keep it moving.
Okay.
Okay, got you. So listen, am I moving in real time? Let's make sure that's happening too. I'm gonna say this, and I say this with all of the love, and I say this with all of the support that I can muster. And I say this just, and I think you probably know where I'm going. It's just one of those things that I got to do research before a candidate comes on, and I didn't know until last night that Johns Creek is actually the richest city in Georgia.
It is.
Not only is Johns Creek the richest city in Georgia, but they're the 95th richest city in the whole United States. When I went to research news about Johns Creek, the first thing that came up was, don't forget, we're having coffee with a cop today. And I was like, that's Johns Creek news today.
Hey, we try to keep it very low key here.
And so I say that to say, you're there and you're running for a city council seat. I went on the website and I looked at the city council, and there was one African American on the city council who is now running for mayor. So the pictures on the website look a little bit different than you and I look.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's part of the reason why I'm actually running, is to make sure that every single community in Johns Creek has a voice and has a seat at the table. Because as you mentioned, Brian is actually not even on city council anymore. He had to step down from his seat so he could run for mayor. And so that leaves a vacancy. That means there's no people of color, none. And one of the things you'll probably talk about is how diverse of a city Johns Creek is. And so it really doesn't leave us much representation.
Let's talk about that. So let's talk about the changing face of Georgia. As we know, Georgia has, and this is a nonpartisan channel. It's a nonpartisan election that you're running for city council, but let's just talk about some facts here. Georgia has traditionally been a red state, period. Okay.
Yes.
And recently in this last election, Johns Creek actually voted the Democrats in.
We did. We're so excited. And we are very excited to flip the city blue. And we are finally making strides, and we want to keep it that way. That is definitely, again, part of the reason why I'm running, is to make sure that, again, we have sensible leadership in Johns Creek.
Okay, now let's talk about that sensible leadership. So with everything happening and with you guys living in this county that seems like, honestly, I was like, I have no sympathy for Johns Creek. I was like, seriously, your news is about coffee with a cup of coffee with a cop. And I know you're proud of that. And there's got to be some issues in Johns Creek that need to be dealt with. You go to these city council meetings. Mm-hmm. What are the citizens of Johns Creek talking about?
I know you're probably going to laugh at me, but we're fighting for things like fixing our infrastructure. One of the things we've been dealing with since our creation in 2006 is stormwater. When you drive, yesterday when it rained and poured, most of the streets here were flooded. So people often hydroplane. It's a big issue. But it's probably one of our biggest issues is our stormwater, and what we're going to do to make sure that we continue to make sure that people's basements aren't backing up, yards, streets, that they're safe. So infrastructure is a big piece, because we have put no money towards infrastructure until just recently, when we've gotten a stormwater utility fee now that's getting ready to start this year. But up until that point, we hadn't put any money and invested anything in stormwater. So it's just been things have just been breaking and not being taken care of up until now. The other big issue that we have, again, do not laugh, is that we still don't have a city center. We end up going to places like the Avalon and Alpharetta to spend our money, because, again, the folks that live in Johns Creek that have typically been in leadership want to keep Johns Creek a bedroom community. And so you and I both know what that means. They want to keep it a bedroom community. They want it to keep it looking a certain way. And so unfortunately, they don't want a lot of high density areas. They don't want a lot of apartments, townhouses, because again, that makes Johns Creek's home values drop, in their opinion. That keeps people from wanting to move to a bedroom community. But unfortunately, there is nothing for people to do here. So we have to continually drive out of the city to go do things. Like for me and Harper, when we want to do something, I have to drive all the way to Atlanta to go do anything with her. There just isn't a whole lot to do outside of the few parks that we do have here. So that's a big piece of it, is making sure that we've got, our parks. We don't have a city center. So once we get that, that will drive business back into the city. That's another big thing, is just trying to make sure that we continue to develop our businesses. And right now they're kind of dying off, especially with COVID. That hasn't really helped. So we do have a lot of, vacancies in some of our, shopping malls, which is common across, the U.S. right now because of COVID. But, those are some of the issues that we're dealing with right now. Is just, keeping our, property taxes low and fair. But again, it sounds a lot different than what you hear in the city of Atlanta. We're fighting for sidewalks.
You're fighting for sidewalks?
Yes, we're fighting for sidewalks. They're really, to kind of
I guess
get them.
Well, let me stop. Hold on. We need to talk about that. And let's talk about the sidewalk issue.
Yeah.
Because it's not that y'all don't have money for sidewalks, right?
No, we have plenty of money.
Okay. Why are you fighting for sidewalks? And I'm gonna ask this because I'm confused, because we had this sidewalk conversation last week. Did we not, Unfiltered? Like, we had this conversation, but it was in regards to the West End, and the fact that in the West End, people are trying to get to work and they're dependent on public transportation, but they got to walk in the streets, right, to get to the public transportation to be able to get to work, to go to a job. So I'm confused about why a city that has funds is fighting for.
So again, obviously it's always a safety concern. You want to have sidewalks so people have a safe way to walk. Our kids can have a safe way to walk to and from school if necessary. But for us, one of the things that people have said at city council meetings or at HOA meetings is that if we build more sidewalks, it will bring the element, and they will walk down the sidewalks and steal our checks out of our mailboxes. And literally at that point, my head wants to pop off. And I'm like, first of all, who still gets checks in the mail? But secondly, you really feel like the people are just strolling up and down the streets to get to your mailbox because they just happen to know that you have a check in there. It's that kind of mentality. It's the same reason why we don't have MARTA here. They don't want MARTA because again, MARTA brings crime in their opinion. So we don't have any transportation, which is the reason why we have the traffic problems that we have in a city this size, is that we don't have any, buses to help deal with that really. So that's not something I'm interested in.
That's what I was going to ask, because it sounds like that's impacting the fact that most people want to walk and live community, right? You want to be able to walk places or push your stroller down the sidewalk, but y'all have to drive everywhere, which is impacting another aspect of it. But let me ask you this. You said a lot of stuff that the city council needs to do, but most people do not understand what. They don't understand that the local elections, that city council is responsible for the infrastructure in your city, not the federal government, not the major elections that most people vote in, but that is your city council's responsibility. Your local police department, we're going to talk about your police department in a second, is the city council's responsibility. Passing the budget for the city is something that you guys do in Johns Creek. So whether or not you have different facilities, all of that stuff is a responsibility of a city council person. So speaking of your police department and everything that's happened all across the country, really, what's going on with your police department? I did read an article. Good morning, Central. I did read an article that something happened last year, or that your police chief resigned because he made a disparaging remark regarding Black Lives Matter.
Yes, he did. And that is all true. I don't know if you remember last summer when the movements were happening. And again, Johns Creek was very active in the Black Lives Matter, protests. And unfortunately, he disagreed and made a comment, and that really put him in the forefront of some other things that he had been doing. And so he ended up stepping down, not just because of his comment, but because of, harassment allegations and some other things that ended up, actually put his foot in his mouth, and that caused him to have the spotlight on him, and some other things were revealed that he hadn't been doing properly. And so he ended up having to step down. We do have a new police chief as of a few months ago, Mark Mitchell. So the police are now starting to adjust to him and adapt and change. But, obviously he's got some repair to do as far as, the relationship with the community, with the officers, to try to build that rapport and try to build, again, that community in the neighborhoods again as well.
So let me ask you this. Speaking of the city council, recently it was in the news that Fulton County finally added Johns Creek to the mask mandate. We all know, based on what the city of Atlanta did, that city councils actually have the authority to issue a mask mandate. What conversations are being had in Johns Creek regarding masks?
So, it is a fight every day, Bernadette, to make sure that we are protecting our citizens. And unfortunately, we have a contingency up here that are anti-mask, anti-vaccine, all of that. And they are the ones who are much more vocal. And so these are the ones who are coming to the school board meetings to say, this is our body, our choice. We deserve the right to not wear a mask. And so those are the same people who are calling our city council members and saying, we don't want to wear a mask. We deserve the freedom to be able to do X, Y, Z. And part of that was also, there was a threshold of like 100. We finally kind of got over that hump. And so now we are part of that mandate because we got over the threshold. Although I don't feel like we should have waited till we got to that threshold to already be wearing masks. We should have been doing that from the beginning. Again, what we know is that this virus spreads much quicker. And then when it does spread, it's much more aggressive. So I don't think we need to be waiting around to see if we get to 100%. We should have been doing that from the very beginning. And so unfortunately, part of the problem with the leadership that we've had on city council is that they don't like to make decisions. They like to kick the ball down or kick the can down the road, and nothing ever gets done. And so they don't want to upset people. They want to go back and forth. And that's the problem. They need somebody on city council that is not afraid to make the tough decisions. And I laugh and, when I talk to the HOAs and say, look, I'm going to go in there and be the bulldog lipstick. I'm here to get things done. I'm not here to make friends. My kid needs a place to play. And if we don't have the green space in the parks to do that, or the sidewalks so that I can walk her there so that we're not having to walk on the grass to get there, we need to get these things done. But we need people who are pragmatic, people who are, responsible, but people who are also willing to listen to the concerns of the community, but also do what's in the best interest of the community. Sometimes even if that may go against, what you're hearing vocally from a few. And we can't let the few larger voices, drown out what the true masses really want and need.
Yeah, that reminds me of an article I read that talked about the loud minority. Mm-hmm. And the loud minority is kind of like that, that whole squeaky wheel gets what they want thing.
Yeah.
And so there is a loud minority. But it sounds like you have to be the loud minority now when you go into this battle at Johns Creek. So the question becomes, here you are in this county that is changing right before our eyes, and you're in the midst of this shift. What makes you think that people in this county are going to elect you, and why would they?
Well, part of that is, again, because you talked about the shift. The city looks differently than what they want you to believe it does. Again, the city is now minority. It is, predominantly minority. And so again, they want somebody who looks like them. When I go to neighborhoods and knock on doors, they want somebody who can represent them. They want to have a seat at the table. And right now they don't feel like their voices are being heard. None of the brown and black, yellow communities feel like they're getting a seat at the table, because what's representing them is not what they're seeing. And that's not something that they want. They really want to have a seat at the table and feel like they have a true partner at City Hall that they have access to. And I think that's part of the reason why they're going to elect me. And because, again, the folks that I've been talking to know that I could be held accountable. I've been in these communities. I'm a community activist. And so first and foremost, they know that I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do, because my track record speaks of such. And so, I always say, judge a tree by its fruits. What fruit have I produced? And I've always been able to produce what I say I'm going to do. If I say we're going to get, again, even though this is a nonpartisan election, if I say we're going to get Democrats elected up and down the ballot, that's what we're going to do. And that's what we've delivered. We were able to flip those seats. And so, again, we're putting people in positions to have a voice and to put the power back in the hands of the people who rightfully deserve it, not just the few who want to keep the community looking a certain way because all of a sudden they feel their privilege is being taken away.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting that you said that because as you were talking, I was thinking about the fact that on Johns Creek's website, they still have 2010 census data. Huh.
Yes.
And it shows a different story, right? The
Mhm.
2010 census data has like 56% white and then everybody else.
Yep.
Whereas a 2020 census report and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution just did an article about this, talking about the fact that things have shifted and a lot of cities, including Johns Creek, are now minority majority.
Mhm.
Meaning that if you add up the Asians and you add up the Hispanics and you add up the African Americans, that is the majority. It's the minorities that come together. And sometimes they have different issues that need to be fought for. They have different perspectives on how things need to look. And I think it's hard to tout the diversity of it while presenting a picture of Johns Creek when it's not really what it looks like. Because to those of us on the outside, when I looked up and I was like, oh, she lived in the richest city in Georgia.
Exactly.
The 95th. I mean, these are the things I read. You live in the 95th richest place in the country, period. Like, what's going on in Johns Creek? But there are things going on in Johns Creek because at the city council meetings, I'm pretty sure y'all are also having discussions about what's being taught in the schools. Are y'all having any conversations about critical race theory?
Oh, okay. So this is the one thing that's so annoying is because again, when people don't know what each government is set up to do, they bring the wrong problems. If you want street lights fixed, that's city council. Critical race theory is not a city council issue. That's a school board issue. So we often hear when we go to HOA meetings and we're talking to people, they say, well, I want to know that you're not going to vote for critical race theory in our schools. And I'm like, ma'am, that's a school board issue. We don't have any control over that. I hear your concerns, but they go right back to it. I need to know that, you're not going to make sure that critical race theory is being taught. Again, when people are afraid of change, they get very combative. And that's what we're seeing is that when you see the majority starting to lose that control, they hold on to the very small things that become wedge issues. And so we're looking at something like critical race theory that's really only taught at a collegiate level, and not just at a collegiate level, but let me be clear, it's taught in law school for the most part. And so some of these people now, what they're referring to, you're talking about just Black history being taught at all. And one lady says, well, I don't want my white child to feel bad for what has been done. And we're like, we're not trying to make anybody feel bad, but schools are still trying to teach fact. This is facts. Facts don't lie. The numbers don't lie. This is what happened. This is history. So either we're teaching history or we're not. But that's a whole nother situation. But back on topic here, it just boils down to people not knowing what city council is supposed to be doing. And that's something that's a school board issue. But again, they're using wedge issues as a way to rally a base, to get people excited about something, to drive voters out. But unfortunately, just like we're using the mask mandate or we're using vaccines, unfortunately, all of these things have become very political when they shouldn't have been. There is no reason why the vaccine should have become a political thing. I had a guy the other day, and that professionally, I'm in pharmaceuticals. And I had a guy who, I was coming out of an office, and the guy said, I was told that I couldn't get the vaccine because I was Republican. And I was floored that he thought that he could not get the vaccine because he voted Republican. And so he had gone to another doctor's office to try to get the vaccine because someone else had told him that that doctor wasn't giving it because he was Republican. And that's concerning. Whether you want the vaccine or not, it shouldn't have become a political issue. But again, that's what we're doing to try to, motivate certain bases to try to come out. And that's unfortunate because, again, people's lives are hanging in the balance. Same thing with masks. Again, what you choose to do with your children at home is on you. But when they come into school, that's a different situation because that impacts all of our children, not just yours. We are not islands. We are all connected. And we have to start thinking about each other as family and not in a silo that we have to be selfish. Because, again, I didn't get the vaccine initially because, I was like, well, let me just kind of play it out and see. Because, again, I wanted to make sure that the elderly had access to it. All those police and fire had access to it. But then when my turn came, I got it, not necessarily because I wanted to be on the front lines of something experimental, but because I have a child that can't get the vaccine. And because we both fought COVID and won, I dare try not to tempt him twice. So I wanted to do the best thing for me and my family, and each person has to make that decision. But to, again, politicize these things is unfortunate. And that's kind of where we are with a lot of these things that we're dealing with on city council, is that we're politicizing things that shouldn't necessarily be such, because again, most of these things are designed to be nonpartisan, because again, a pothole doesn't care who hits it. It doesn't care if you're a Democrat or Republican.
Right.
You know?
You better say it.
And a sidewalk, again, doesn't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, it just wants somebody to walk on it. But a stray bullet, again, does not care if you're a Democrat or Republican. Crime is crime. So again, protecting the community, doing all of those things that impact us, again, are nonpartisan. People want to feel safe. I don't care who you are, what color you are. You want to feel safe in the community that you live in.
That's good. That's good. That's good. And you said something important that I want people to take away from this. Pay attention to the wedge issues. The wedge issues are things that are, it's like a red herring. They're things that are designed to distract you and to make you take your eye off of the issues that are important. There's propaganda on both sides of the issue.
Absolutely.
So we all have to make sure that we're using our discernment and that we're educating ourselves on what's going on. Don't believe something just because somebody posted it in the chat. Don't believe something just because somebody said it on the news or you saw it in a blog. Research it for yourself and use your discernment. That's right, Katrina. Stay focused. So if we're focusing on what this segment is about, which is why should we elect you? Which is us taking the power back, which is the power being vested in the people, because we get to decide who walks into the door. We are the gatekeepers. So in our role as gatekeepers, we're asking questions, and you in your role as servant came here to answer them. And I got to be honest, Lee, I don't even like the word politician.
Right. It honestly has a negative term. Absolutely.
It's a negative term.
We should be called servants, because that's what we're here to do, is to serve. And again, another reason why you need to elect me is because, again, I have a servant's heart. And you know, there are two ways in perspectives, and luckily I know your audience is friendly to this, but at the end of the day, I've been called to serve. You know, it is my season to serve, and I'm stepping into a position that I fought for far too long. But when you've been given dominion over government, sometimes it's not about us wanting to take a position. It's about being told that this is your season and I need you to step here because people need you. And that's what I'm willing to do. You know, sometimes that takes us falling on the sword to make sure that the people who come behind us have an opportunity and have a seat at the table. I run through walls so that Harper can walk through them behind me. And so that is part of leaving a legacy, that sometimes we got to stand up for what's right and be the person that's not afraid to speak up and speak out on what's right and what's wrong and who deserves a seat at the table. Because again, who gets to decide that? And again, people, you know, and unfortunately, this position only pays $13,000 a year. Let me be clear, $13,000 a year, when city of Atlanta is, you know, I think they just gave themselves a raise, potentially up to $70,000. That's almost full-time wages, versus here in Johns Creek. What you're basically saying is that if you don't already have good disposable income, this job isn't even for you. Because again, who can live off $13,000 a year? That's not enough to even pay for my child's soccer and jujitsu and swim lessons for the course of the year.
She said jujitsu.
I did say jujitsu because we got to know how to fight. not just, but spiritually as well. Though we got to be armed. We got to be equipped. So we're gonna be equipped all the way across the board. But again, you know, that it pays so little. So what you're telling me is that as a single mom, I don't have a voice. You're telling me that as a working citizens, I don't necessarily have a voice, because again, if it's designed for the people who have money and disposable income, that's unfortunate, because what you end up with is a board that looks like people who have access to funds. And that's what I'm fighting against, is to make sure that every single person has a seat at the table, whether they look like me or they don't. They deserve a voice, and they deserve a friendly face that they can see that will be held accountable. And again, if you can't reach me after I've been elected, unseat me. And that's what we have to start doing, is if I'm not doing the job you put me there to do, unseat me. Find somebody to run against me and tell me, you know what? We asked you, you told us, you committed, and you defaulted. So we are now repoing all that we gave you before. And we have to start holding elected officials accountable, because again, they're here to serve us, not the other way around. And until we get to a place where we understand that the power is truly ours as citizens, then we're missing the boat. And you kind of touched on this a second ago, but all politics is local. And it's so funny because right now we're fighting about mask mandates and all of that. But I was telling people 2 years ago, and when we were electing, school board members before, make sure you vote for school board members. And they would stop at the top of the ballot and forget to go down the school board. I said, because that's the stuff that impacts you, your judges, your school boards. All those people impact you, your sheriffs, all of that. Those are people who impact your day-to-day lives. Don't just be worried about the people who are in Senate and, your state, your legislatures, because at the end of the day, those things are on a bigger perspective. You need to make sure you're taking care of home. Who's fixing the street lights so that you can go outside at night? Who's making sure that you don't have potholes or you're having to buy a tire every other couple weeks? Who's handling those things? And until we realize that all politics is local and put that in perspective, we're doing ourselves a disadvantage, because now you're mad about the city council, the school board not doing what you want, but you chose not to vote for them. And so now all of a sudden we're waking up to what we should have did a long time ago. And that's making sure that we vote for in these local elections. And so now people are aware, and I'm hoping that moving forward, we take the shield off of our eyes and realize that we need to be focused on these municipal elections, because again, those are the people who impact our day-to-day lives.
That clip right there was everything that you would want to hear from someone that you select, which, by the way, if you put an S in front of elect, you get select. Okay. Right. That you select or that you choose to go into office. Let's talk about the police department. Let's talk about the sheriff. Don't wait till you get arrested to complain about who you elected, because you just said, oh, incumbent, and check the box. What did the incumbent do? What is their record? Are there changes that you wanted to see that haven't been made? And then the real question becomes, did you even know that your local officer was responsible for it?
Right.
Or did you think it was the state? Or did you think it was the Senate? Or did you think it was Congress or the federal government who was supposed to do that? No. You need to understand that at the local level, those are those changes that you see on a daily basis, are the local level politics. So I thank you for even bringing about what you talked about. Don't get mad because that judge who's sitting in that seat gave your son 20 years for something somebody else in another county got 2 days of probation for. Don't get mad because you weren't paying attention to who you were putting in office at a local level. Come on now.
Yes.
That's why who you elect as a judge matters. It's not even just about, some people elect, or all they talk about is money, or go get that money, and who's going to give us a tax break, and who's going to do it. This is not about money. There are bigger things than that. There are bigger things than those issues. What we're talking about here is what happens to our children on the local level, what happens to their education on the local level, whether they're safe on the local level. This is all why these local level politics matter. Whether or not I'm going to get into an accident because there was a big old pothole, whether or not there are stop signs and lights where they're supposed to be, whether there are resources in the community, whether the Board of Education in that county cares about No Child Left Behind, or are they leaving them behind? Wake up.
Precisely. And we have to be accountable. And again, that's part of the reason why I'm running, because again, I have to be the change that I see, because I'm either part of the solution or I'm part of the problem. So it's either, put up or shut up. And at some point we have to decide. I can't expect, well, Bernadette, what are you going to do about the park situation? Well, what are you going to do about crime? It has to be, what am I going to do? What responsibility am I going to take? It's almost like a divorce. After it's over, it's like, well, what was my responsibility? What could have I done differently? It's too late at that point. You need to be asking those questions before. What could I be doing now to speak up and speak out to make change happen and effectively make change? And unfortunately, we expect other people to do the work. And so we have got to be held accountable as a community, because again, it's happening to our communities. We're the ones that are predominantly impacted by these changes, especially when it comes to law enforcement, when it comes to sentencing, all of that. So again, if you don't care about who your judge is, I promise you, if you have a young Black boy in this system, you'll quickly realize that you should have paid attention.
You'll start caring then.
You'll start caring. So again, we've got to do our part. We can't expect handouts. We've got to start helping each other up and teaching each other what we need to do. But education has always been, a key to our community getting where we need to be. And until we can do that, we're not going to fix the crime situation the way we need to, because again, we know that, there's a direct link between crime and education. Mm-hmm. And until, again, Johns Creek's education system is phenomenal, which is the reason why I moved here in the first place. And so you talk about graduation rates, over 98%. You talk about people who have a college degree, over 75%. And so that's the reason why we have some of the lowest crime rates, because again, you look at education levels and some of those things. And again, we have to start as a community doing the same things, making sure that we're getting what we need, but we're requiring that, because again, where are tax dollars going? What school systems are they going to? Is all the money flowing to North Fulton, or are we making sure that some of that money stays on the South side so that we can get new schools as well? We shouldn't have to move to Johns Creek to make sure that our kids have a good quality education, but that's where we're at.
Right. And that's interesting you said that. So I want to ask it, and this is going to shift the conversation just a little bit, but you mentioned Fulton County. Johns Creek is a part of Fulton County.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so what happens is, it's like you got to look at the local level, then you look at what's happening on the county level, because there are funds that impact that. They have an impact on some stuff because there's different jurisdictional, there are levels to this, and we're here to learn those levels and understand them. But recently I was looking at the fact that the state is looking at taking over the Board of Elections. And I want to hit on this, because what happens in Fulton affects every city in Fulton.
Yes.
So talk to us and educate us on that, because I know, and before you do that, give us a preface, because you've been in the political arena and you've been serving for a long time. So let me ask you that, because we just jumped in and talked without even giving that history. Tell us your history of service in the community.
So I have been, I'm in my second term now as the chair of the Fulton County Democratic Party. So all things political that happens in Fulton County kind of run through us. And so one of the problems that we face right now is the potential board takeover. And that's problematic, because what we do know, and the numbers speak for themselves, is that we still have a contingency that feel like the election was stolen from them. And no matter how many times we do an audit, and no matter how many times we count this vote, and mind you, I hand counted some of these ballots myself at 2:00 in the morning. It's counted, been recounted, and we spent tons of tax dollars doing this. And it's at this point, why are we continuing to waste the funds to do so? Now, what we do know is that they feel that if they suppress the vote, that they can control things. And so unfortunately, what happens is that communities of color, especially poor communities, end up getting the brunt of this. Because when you look at, changing, drop boxes, things like that, where people who work late hours, could go and, drop their ballot off after hours, or being able to vote by absentee. We had some of the highest turnouts we've ever had, because people were able to vote by absentee and not having to go down there during a pandemic. But now you want to change that, because you said it allowed people to cheat. And so now what they're looking at in Fulton County, and just so that you guys understand this, if they take the, Fulton County's right and they take it to the state, what will happen is that they will get to determine how those elections are played out. And unfortunately, based on how that's set up, it's not going to benefit communities of color. And so you will be suppressing the vote. You'll have less access. And so your voice will not be heard. And so it is critical that we make sure that doesn't happen. They're waiting for every single mistake, right now that happens down at Fulton County. So whether, especially that's why these municipal elections are so important, because we'll get an idea of kind of the foolishness that they plan to do. Whether we run out of paper, are they going to report that to say, Fulton County ran out of paper, or the lines were an hour and a half long? They can't handle it. Therefore, we need to take it over. And if they take over Fulton County, again, the largest county, then they'll do the same thing to Clayton. They'll do the same thing to DeKalb, because if they can do it to Fulton, they can do it to any other county. And then that will guarantee that for decades to come, they can control how these elections play out. And you will no longer have a voice.
So Christina Callwood posted, "Too many of us bypass the local level and go straight to Washington. It starts at the local level." How many people would you say, just based on your research, actually, how many residents in Johns Creek, first of all, and how many people actually voted for the city council elections?
You have about 85,000 people that live in Johns Creek, roughly. But typically for an election, about 5,000 people decide who the mayor is going to be and who the city council is going to be. And obviously different years, the numbers fluctuate, obviously, with the pandemic and different things, but typically about 5,000 people determine that. 5,000.
5,000.
Yeah, 5,000 people.
Out of a city that big.
5,000. And that's across the board. That's city of Atlanta. I mean, obviously
City of
city of
Atlanta is the same, Fayette
Yeah.
County is the same. And it goes back to the fact that we don't understand the importance of local elections. So that being said, it has been an amazing talk with you. I'm going to do two things. I'm going to let you say something that maybe you wanted to talk about and we didn't talk about. Then I'm going to do the giveaway, and then I'm going to let you have some closing thoughts.
So what I'll say is this, guys, that while I know that this election is nonpartisan, I will say that we are trying to keep the communities, we're trying to make sure that everybody gets a seat at the table. And if you're open to that, we need volunteers. So you can do that from Fayetteville. You can do that from another state in Tennessee. You can make phone calls. You can send text messages. You can write postcards. Now is the time to get involved. And if you're looking for that opportunity, I'm happy to give you that opportunity. You can plug in with our campaign. You can reach me at LeeForJC.com. So that's LeeForJC.com. If you want to volunteer. And again, if there's something that you want to do, we can make sure that you're able to help. But again, Johns Creek is a city that we can flip and that everybody has a seat at the table, because right now we have the option to do that. And this is here and in Sandy Springs, North Fulton in general. We've got lots of municipal races that if you're willing to get plugged in, I can plug you in, not just on my race, but if you want to get involved, North Fulton is the place to do it, because we control Atlanta. We control South Fulton. What we don't control is a seat at the table in North Fulton. And so all the people up here who look like you and I are not getting our fair share, should I say. And so if you're wanting to help, please reach out. You guys, Bernadette can make sure you can post my information. But again, now is the time to get involved. Don't wait until it's too late, because then the damage has already been done. Now is the time to get involved in your local races. And I hope that you guys take the time to learn who they are. If you live in Fulton County, you're trying to figure out who you need to vote for, feel free to reach out to me. I will tell you who's worth voting for. I don't care where you live, whether it be city of Atlanta, somewhere. I will make sure to do the research and tell you if you're not willing to take the time out to do that for yourself. But we have got to make sure we're putting the people in position that will serve us and serve our families and our communities well. I think you're muted.
As you're talking, I really began to think about the fact that we're tired of pay to play.
Oh yeah.
And during your segment where you're just on fire, and we saw the passion and we saw your love for the people and we saw your heart of service really shine through. One of the things I really started thinking about was pay to play. You're only making $13,000 a year for this part-time position of service, okay, for that time. But there are some people who put tens of thousands of dollars of their own money into their campaign. And I believe that happens in Johns Creek as well. And when I see someone putting $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 into their own campaign for a local election, it makes me do two things. It makes me say, this local election must be really important. But then it also makes me say, why are you doing that?
Oh yeah. Because you want to control the balance. And again, so funny you mentioned that. My opponent, once they found out I was running, he gave himself $70,000. Now, again, I don't have $70,000 of my own personal money to dump in that I can afford to not ever get back. But But $70,000 for a position that pays 15
for a city council seat.
Yes.
We're done with pay to play. This is going to be done one conversation at a time. It's a grassroots effort. It's about your credibility. It is about your passion. It's not about your pockets.
Yeah. But they know that it's going to be hard especially for a small race like this. It doesn't usually take that amount of money to raise. But, take, for instance, for me, $25,000 would have been enough to run this race and win it successfully. But now that he's dumped $70,000 in, it's going to be a challenge and it's going to be a fight. And I hope that you guys, and I don't care if it's $5 or $25, that you guys are willing to chip in so that I have an opportunity to have a seat at the table, so that your voice on the north side is heard, so that you have representation across this state, so that when you come through Johns Creek, you know what, I'm not going to be profiled because I know somebody there at city council that's making sure that our officers are well trained, so that that isn't a problem. And so again, it takes money to win elections. Unfortunately, that's where we are. And I need to be able to have a seat at the table. So I'm hoping that you guys hear my heart. You guys have seen me on this show. My passion. I've been called to serve. but it takes money. And so I'm hoping that you guys donate. And again, you can do that at leadforjc.com. Again, $5 or $2,500. I don't care. Chip in. I would appreciate it.
All right. And then I already know some people have posted that they want you to put them in, coach. So they want to volunteer for your campaign.
Perfect.
So we'll have some people who are getting in touch with you about that as well, because I hadn't even thought about that. It doesn't matter where you are. People could help send text messages out and help make phone calls and just help raise awareness. And so we definitely have some volunteers, and I'm sure some people are going to donate too. Now, I'm going to put you in the back room for a moment.
Sure.
However, be thinking about what your closing thoughts are. And Cynthia Daniels is absolutely correct. Volunteering is money, because it means that you don't have to pay someone to do the job. So giving of your time is an absolutely amazing thing. So I'm going to put you in the back room. Think about what your closing thoughts are. Like if you were on a debate and they gave you 1 minute to basically just get it in, we want to hear what you're going to say. So let me put her in the back room really quick, guys. This has been another amazing episode of Unfiltered as we continue on with this segment called Why Should We Elect You? And here we go. You guys know that we give away cash every single week. Without further ado, I need you guys to start dropping those numbers in the chat box.
Loves me like you used to. Sometimes we're not ourselves. There's no one I can turn to. And I'll take some time, but I'll be alright. We're moving on. We're moving on. I know times are tough, but I've had enough. We're moving on. We're moving on. We're moving on.
Okay, guys. So we do already have a winner, or at least the person who came. I love you guys too. The person who came closest to it. Oh my goodness. It's right on the money, actually. Stephanie guessed 55. So the number is 55. That's going to go to Stephanie Croft. So congratulations to Stephanie and to Shanita on winning today. So I'm going to let you have the floor and give us our closing thoughts. So let me put you up here on the big screen.
So I will say this, guys. Time out for being complacent. If you're looking for leadership that will keep things stagnant and where they are, I'm not the person that you're looking to vote for. But if you're looking for someone that's willing to keep our neighborhood safe, provide and keep the promises that we've been offered but not delivered, and somebody who's willing to provide a brighter future for all of us, no matter what our skin tone looks like and how much money we earn, I'm going to be the leader for you. Because again, I'm willing to be a voice for everyone, not just certain pockets of the community. I want to make sure that every single mother has a voice, every community of color has a voice, and everybody has a seat at the table. So again, guys, if you're looking for that type of leadership, I'm asking for your thoughts, your prayers, and your vote November 2nd. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys. And thank you, Lee, for joining us. This has been a definitely enlightening conversation. As always, we appreciate you. God bless you. We wish you the best. We look forward to great things out of you because it is your season to serve. And with that being said, guys, we love you as well. Thank you for tuning in to Unfiltered. We have the next 2 weeks already booked up, so we're excited about what we're going to be bringing you. I believe next week we actually have one of our favorite guests coming back with us, Mr. Martin Augustine. And we're going to be talking about some issues critical and related to criminal justice and the police department. So it's going to be an exciting time for us here on the show next week. So until next week, you know how we do. Be blessed and stay woke. You guys who won today, you know what to do. Shoot me an email at beblessed@bcright.com with your preferred method of payment. Mwah. Love y'all and see you next week.
It's bigger than me. It's bigger than me. It's bigger. It's bigger. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than me. Yeah. It's bigger, yeah. It's bigger. It's bigger than rain. It's bigger. It's bigger.